about a boy moving from one struggle to another, capturing loneliness, hardship, and a quiet strength in the face of adversity. The Long Way Home. Rain tapped gently on the cracked window pane of the small room. The boy sat on the edge of the bed, lacing up worn-out sneakers that had seen better days. His name was Eli, 14 years old, thin as a stick, and older in the eyes than most boys his age. He glanced once at the clock. 6:12 a.m. Another late start. His stomach growled, but the cupboard had been empty for 2 days now, and the last packet of noodles had gone to his little sister before she was taken. Taken by the system, by a caseworker with fake smiles and a clipboard. That was months ago. Since then, Eli had been on his own. He stepped outside into the morning gloom, the air heavy with the scent of wet asphalt and cold. The city, as always, paid him no mind. He was just another shadow slipping between broken buildings and chain-link fences. His first stop was the junkyard, where old Mr. Dan sometimes paid him a few bucks to sort through scrap metal. Today, there was nothing. "Not today, kid," Mr. Dan muttered, eyes not meeting his. "Too slow. Got others now." Eli nodded, trying to hide the sting in his chest. "Okay," he said softly, turning away before the old man could see the disappointment in his face. He walked. That's what Eli did most of the time. Walked. Past schools he couldn't go to anymore. Past diners he couldn't afford. Past people who didn't, or wouldn't, see him. His next stop was the alley behind a bakery. Sometimes, if he timed it right, they tossed out slightly burnt bread. Today, someone had beat him to it. The trash bins were empty. He sat on the curb for a minute, watching the steam rise from the bakery windows, imagining the smell of cinnamon rolls. His stomach twisted again. "Get lost, kid," a man barked from the back door. Eli jumped and ran. By midday, the clouds had broken. Sunlight filtered through the cracks in the sky, but it brought no warmth to Eli. He wandered to the library, a place that was free, where no one asked questions if you stayed quiet. He huddled near the heating vent and stared at the ceiling, the hum of pages turning all around him. He wasn't stupid. He used to get good grades. Before his mom got sick, before the hospital bills, before she died and everything fell apart like dominoes. He read when he could, stories of heroes and distant lands, of boys with swords and destinies. But none of those boys were hungry or wearing shoes held together by duct tape. None of them had to figure out where they were going to sleep that night. The library closed at 5. He left with the others, shoulders hunched against the evening chill. That night he tried to sleep behind the train station. It was loud, and the ground was cold, but there was shelter from the wind. As he curled beneath his thin blanket, he heard voices, other homeless people arguing over space or food. He kept quiet, eyes wide open in the dark. A boot nudged his leg. "You ain't sleeping here," a rough voice growled. Eli stared up into the face of a man with a beard like tangled rope. He said nothing, just gathered his blanket and left. The next day was worse. Rain again. Cold seeped through his clothes like ice. He got caught stealing a sandwich from a convenience store. The owner didn't call the cops, just shoved him hard and shouted curses until he fled. He ended up at the bridge where the river moved dark and slow. For a long time, he sat on the edge watching the water. It would be so easy, a voice whispered in his mind. Just one step. No more hunger, no more cold, no more pain. But then he thought of his sister. Her name was Sophie, 6 years old. Last he saw her, she had a gap-toothed smile and hands that clung to his like lifelines. She was safe, maybe. He hoped. But he had to find her again. He had promised, and promises. Eli still believed in those. He stood up, wiping his face roughly with his sleeve. Weeks passed like a blur, struggle after struggle. Shelter lines, soup kitchens, a stolen jacket, night in a bus station. He learned to hide, learned when to speak and when to disappear. People gave up on you fast out here, but Eli didn't give up on himself. One evening he met a man in the park. Not a stranger, but someone who used to know his mom, a youth counselor named Marcus. Eli didn't recognize him at first, but Marcus recognized Eli right away. "My God," the man whispered, crouching beside the boy. "Eli, is that you?" Eli hesitated. He'd learned not to trust adults, but Marcus didn't ask anything at first, just handed him a sandwich and a hot drink. They sat in silence. Later, Marcus asked if he wanted help. Not the kind that came with cages and rules. Real help. A bed, a shower, maybe a way to find Sophie. Eli didn't answer right away. He looked up at the stars, dim behind clouds, and thought of all the nights he'd survived alone. Finally, he nodded. It wasn't a perfect ending. There were more struggles ahead. Therapy, paperwork. Finding Sophie would take time. Trust wouldn't come easy, but for the first time in a long time, Eli had a pillow, warm food, a name to write on school forms again, and more than anything, he had a place where someone said, "You're safe here," and meant it. Thanks for watching.